Do you like fighting games? Do you like JRPGs? Then chances are you probably adore the duology of Persona 4 fighting games. Well, it looks like Persona 4 Arena games will be supplemented with a new Persona fighting game. This information comes from a leaker who previously got Persona 3 Reload correct and supposedly some other Atlus projects as well. If I were to hazard a guess, I'd say we're likely getting a fighting game with Persona 5 characters. For this video, I'll explore why I think it's going to be a Persona 5 centric fighter, and I'll cover when I think we'll get it as well. So, let's get into it. The reason I think it'll be a Persona 5 fighting game is because that's still the flagship for the Persona franchise, at least until Persona 6 comes around. The leaker said in a tweet that Persona 6 would be out around 2026, which, yeah, I believe that. With all of the other projects Atlus are releasing next year and probably into 2025, I feel like that's buying time for Persona 6. Also, we know that Persona fans have been demanding since Persona 5 launched in 2016 there be a Persona 5 fighter. Around now makes sense for one to launch, even if people are starting to complain about Atlus milking Persona 5 for all it's worth. I know a lot of my friends are sick of seeing the Phantom Thieves by this point in time. Persona 5 is also a very good fit for a fighting game because it's the most over-the-top and stylish Persona game to date. While the remake of Persona 3 looks really good graphically, it doesn't look as stylized. It has much more of a generic anime video game aesthetic. When it comes to fighting games, the ones that have a very stylized flair to the graphics tend to stand out the most. While I wouldn't be surprised if there's a Persona 3 fighter in the works, I feel like it has an outside chance of happening in the near future, since Atlus is going to want to space Persona 3 titles out as much as it can in terms of additional games. I actually feel like we'll see a definitive version of Persona 3 before we see a P3 fighter. I covered why in a separate video. Another reason I can see Persona 5 getting a fighting game is because Arc System Works or whoever works on this project could really do a lot of things with the Persona 5 cast mechanically. I could actually see Persona 5 working really well as a tag team fighter. I mean, who wouldn't want a Persona 5 Marvel clone? I imagine my editor is absolutely salivating at my just mentioning this. Why do I feel like Persona 5 is so suited to a tag team fighter though? It's because of the all-out attack mechanics in the Persona franchise. This mechanic has of course been in the series for a while now, but Persona 5 managed to make it very cinematic with the silhouetted characters and then a cool animation of the character who initiated the all-out attack followed up by a portrait of said character. Persona 5 just oozes style, and that's what tag fighters tend to be, incredibly stylish looking games that have a lot of substance beneath all the flash. Plus, we know that Arc System Works is able to make an absolutely amazing tag fighter. I adore Blaze Blue Cross Tag Battle, and I wish I had more people to play with because it's so damn fun. Now imagine the gameplay found in that, but as a 3-character affair. It'd be absolutely insanely fun. Since I've talked about why I think Persona 5 makes the most sense, let's move on to why I think Arc is working on this project. Let's face it, whatever you might think of them, for most people, it's Arc System Works that make the premier fighting games of this current era. I can see why, despite not being a big fan of Guilty Gear Strive. But that isn't why I think it is Arc that is working on this project. I believe they're the studio tackling this game because they did the previous Persona fighting games and because they seemingly have a good working relationship with Atlus. There's also the fact to consider the leaker, whose name I'm not going to try pronouncing, indicated in their tweets that both Atlus and whichever company is working on it have been busy for a while. So let's face it, Arc System Works have been insanely busy. They've done Guilty Gear Strive, Dragon Ball FighterZ, the failure that was DNF Duel, and a few other things. So it's clear why they couldn't have made a Persona 5 fighter until recently. If you dig deep into that Twitter thread, you'll notice the leaker states this project has been in and out of development since 2015. Clearly, it has been caught in developmental hell for various reasons. But yeah, Arc Systems are the perfect developer for a Persona fighting game because they know how to make incredible looking games. Guilty Gear has that really slick 3D as 2D look that other fighting games just don't have. I just wish Arc would improve their menu and lobbies, as there isn't a single one of their systems I like in that sense. Okay, so this is a point I'm excited to discuss. What do I want this game to be mechanically? I already covered it a little bit in my first point. I think this game is begging to be a tag fighter. They could do so many cool twists with characters summoning their personas, then tagging out for another character. It would be hard to balance, but this has a lot of potential for flashy and super long combos. I also want this fighter to be super fast paced in terms of fighting speed. That's something I feel Cross Tag Battle did exceptionally well. Also, if Arc System Works are doing this game, they can use that game as the baseline for this one. Plus, if they take elements of Persona 4 Arena and Arena Ultimax, they'll have a clear winning formula on their hands, since all of those games do what any good game should do: actually be fun. Unlike The Last of Us.
Them's fighting words.
Other than that, I'd like to see them expand the ability of the persona when they're summoned in battle. They could do some really cool ideas with that. I'd also like to see Arc bring back some of the Persona 4 Arena cast in some way, just because it'd be cool to see the Persona 4 and 5 casts interacting. Though we have sort of had this in the past with Persona Q2, which featured characters from P3 through 5. Basically, there's a lot they could do here, and I'm all for it. I couldn't find an exact date for when we'll see this game in that Twitter thread, so if I missed it, please let me know in the comments section. So keep in mind, this is merely guesswork on my part. Since we know Atlus will be releasing a ton of games next year, I believe we'll see it either at the very tail end of 2024 or into the very early stages of 2025. I feel these dates fit best because a late 2024 release means this game will be out in time for the holiday season, when video games of all descriptions sell in droves. As for early 2025, well, most games released in the early year face very little competition, since most developers want to release their games later in the year. For some, an early release might indicate the developer and publisher don't exactly have high hopes for the title. But if Persona 5 Fighters, or whatever this title ends up being, releases before Tekken 8, which is expected to drop in 2024 sometime, it'll do exceptionally well. However, if it drops after Tekken 8, despite being a different kind of fighting game, I don't imagine it'll do so hot, because Tekken is considered one of the premier fighting games. So let's face it, a Persona fighting game is not going to have much hope against that. I feel like a late January to early February release window would be best for this game overall. So those are just some of my thoughts on these leaks. Leaks aren't something I'm going to cover all that frequently on this channel unless they really interest me. This has caught my interest, and if it bears fruit, this is a game I'm going to be following closely. But what would you like to see from a Persona 5 fighting game? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe. 2 of my previous videos will be popping up now. One is questioning if the simplification of Persona 3 is a good thing. The other is my list of 10 perfect JRPGs. Spoiler alert, Persona 5 Royal features on it. Check those out, and until next time, keep blazing that trail.